The NFL season is right around the corner, and we're getting you ready for week 1 here on No Timeouts. That's Dan Wilkins, that's Tyler MacKillop, that is Zak McDonald. My name is Jonah Birenbaum. Gentlemen, as we sit here right now, there are certain teams that we can project with a high degree of confidence are going to be in the mix for the playoffs. They're going to be contending for the Super Bowl. The Eagles, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Lions, etc. And meanwhile, there are certain teams that we can say confidently will not be there come playoff time. Yes, we're looking at you, New Orleans and Cleveland. However, there's a class of teams that is kind of hard to categorize. They could be playoff teams, they could fall flat on their faces, so you guys have to tell me whether the following teams are contenders or pretenders. Wilk, we're going to start with you, and you've got the new-look Seattle Seahawks. They won 10 games last year in their first season under Mike McDonald. That was their best season since 2020, but obviously this year's team looks very different. Geno Smith, gone. Sam Darnold, in. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, those guys are out. Cooper Kupp is in. Torrey Horton made the team. Very different looking team. The Seattle Seahawks, contenders or pretenders?
I'm going to say contender. And, I can't reasonably make the case that they're going to be pushing for the Super Bowl. There are only so many teams who are going to be in that mix. But I think they're really going to surprise some people this year, and I think they're going to be in the playoffs. Heading into this offseason, the moves they made early, I'll admit it was tough for me to see the vision there. Don't think you could reasonably expect anyone to agree that shipping out Geno Smith and DK Metcalf and replacing them with Sam Darnold and Cooper Kupp is a fair upgrade for that offense.
And Cooper Kupp is not Cooper Kupp anymore. That's
exactly.
The corpse of Cooper Kupp. That's right.
Exactly. But the point is that there's more to it than just like who's in at quarterback, who's in at receiver. The vision for this offense looks a lot different now when you consider that they should be a lot better up front. A big part of that is obviously the addition of Gray Zabel at guard. He looked awesome in the preseason. But the even bigger part is that this new system that they're running under Clint Kubiak should allow for a very productive ground game. You have Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet in the backfield. I think that's going to be an awesome tandem.
Love Zach Charbonnet.
Yeah, and just that ground game, I think, provides a really good foundation and support for Sam Darnold to build off of his really a breakout year in Minnesota, and just provides a really cool complement for what I think is quietly become one of the best defenses in football. So, yeah, give me the Seahawks as a playoff team, even potentially as a NFC West champion if pending the availability of Matthew Stafford throughout the whole season in LA. But yeah, I see them in the playoffs, and to me that would make Mike McDonald the front runner for a coach of the year.
Yeah, there's no real juggernaut in that division, and I'm curious. You talked about the running game. To what degree do you think that that's going to facilitate play action for Sam Darnold and the Seahawks? Because that was such a big part of his game in Minnesota last year. He was one of the best quarterbacks at running play action. Yeah. But they didn't do a ton of that last year with Geno Smith in Seattle. Do you see that becoming a bigger part of their offense this year?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the foundation of this offense. I don't think it's actually necessary to have a productive run game for play action to be impactful for you, but it certainly can't hurt. And I think that that's what they're going to build this entire offense around. So just a really strong run game, marrying the pass game off of that. And I think the offense could be a lot better than people think as a result.
We know Clint Kubiak loves his play action. Go ahead, Zach.
And I think that's a big reason why Darnold even went to Seattle. Like, he's worked with Kubiak before. He loves this system. And it's kind of like underrated how amazing Sam Darnold was last year because he had that bad finish at the end of the season. But he had 35 TDs, 12 interceptions. He's playing within a system that makes sense. And he's on a team that actually has a vision. Mike McDonald, since he got there, has had a strong vision for how he wants to build a team. And they've put all those pieces into place.
Yeah, we'll say it was a very small sample size last year, too. Remember how excited we all were about the Saints after those first two games?
Yeah.
And obviously that went away, but I think a big part of that was all the injuries they had, right?
Yeah.
Like, the first two games still gave you a glimpse of what a Kubiak offense could look like if it's running well. And I don't know, they got some really interesting pieces. I'm fascinated to see this team this year.
We're going to stick around in the NFC North and talk about the Vikings. Obviously, what a dream season they had last year, at least until about week 18. They won 14 games, one shy of the franchise record. Obviously, they don't have Sam Darnold anymore. They're handing the reins to a rookie, well, I guess a second-year player in J.J. McCarthy, who was obviously extremely raw after missing all of last year with that meniscus tear. Zachy, the Vikings, contenders or pretenders?
I think the Vikings are contenders. I kind of love everything about the Vikings. Obviously, the super dynamic wide receiver core. Even TJ Hawkinson's a really great player. They should be able to run the ball again. And I always one thing I've always looked back on is what are the determining factors for quarterbacks being successful? And it's kind of impossible to separate these two things, but usually it's the coaches. Like if a guy goes to a good coach, it's actually the best predictor of success. Not even where a guy gets drafted necessarily. And I think that part of that, there's a few reasons for that. Number one, you have the coach is choosing the guy. So I like that they have, in my mind, honestly, like Kevin O'Connell might be the best offensive coach in all of football right now. So he's choosing J.J. McCarthy, and the young quarterback gets to go into a system where everybody around him knows exactly what they're doing. So there is none of that miscommunication that comes with J.J. McCarthy having to teach his guys what they're supposed to be doing. Rather, it's the offense is going to be teaching J.J. McCarthy what he's supposed to be doing. So I think that is a real recipe for success. And I just like J.J. McCarthy in general. And also, if you want to talk about Kevin O'Connell being maybe the best offensive coach in the league, they might have the best defensive coach in the league as well, who's basically, they have 2 head coaches on the squad. You got Brian Flores, who, because of all this weird stuff that's gone on in the background, can't get a head coaching job. So he's stuck being the defensive coordinator, and it's a really beautiful pairing. And there's almost no way that you're not going to have a good defense when you have a guy who is able to, one of the few guys in the NFL that can scheme up ways for the defense to win.
I think the big thing here is that the offensive line is so much better, or at least it should be so much better. Like, when you look at how they ended up crumbling down the stretch and in the playoffs last year, like, that was really the issue. They went out and they completely remade that offensive line, bringing Will Fries and Ryan Kelly, and then they draft Donovan Jackson in the first round. I think that they've laid the foundation so perfectly for McCarthy to come in and hit the ground running. He may not put up the exact same numbers that Sam Darnold did last year, but I think that this offense could be overall just as productive, and that's pretty scary to think about because they won 14 games last year.
Yeah.
My question is, how long of a leash does McCarthy get? Because to your point, this is a ready-made contender that just needs solid, adequate quarterback play. If he's not delivering that, how quickly do they pivot to Carson Wentz? That's my question.
Carson Wentz,
Yeah.
who they just added.
How long do leashes get? That's what he gets. We're not doing the Carson Wentz thing.
All right. Fair. I mean, Kevin O'Connell is the quarterback whisperer, but Carson Wentz has played 2 games in the last 2 years, so that does make sense.
Vikings better roster than the Packers?
I think it's pretty. I'd maybe take the Vikings, but the Packers have the better, more proven quarterback, right? So that's
Counts for a lot.
I don't know. I think that your point about the run game is really important, though, too, right?
Oh,
like,
100%. Like, I think
bringing
Mason's
Jordan
a good
Mason this year,
addition,
I think that this could be a really good offense.
That's
All
where
right, speaking
Jones
of good
is flourished.
offenses, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about a team in the AFC. The Cincinnati Bengals, they started off really slowly last year. They did turn it on towards the end, winning each of their last 5 games, but it was too little too late. They missed the playoffs for a second year in a row. We know that this offense is mighty dangerous, but that defense, yikes. Wilk, the Bengals, contenders or pretenders?
Pretender. I mean, I don't really understand why I've had to spend this entire offseason listening to all these national conversations. Every time the Bengals come up, we talk about them as a Super Bowl contender. And I'm wondering, are we looking at the same team? Like, last year, of course, we know that they have Joe Burrow. That's the quarterback you want for a Super Bowl run. They have these great weapons, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, probably the best receiver tandem in the league. And they've got an up-and-coming running back. He was great last year. They had these guys last year.
Yeah.
They all played as well as you could possibly ask for them, and it still wasn't enough.
Their roster is worse than
Yeah,
last year.
it was-
You say it's not, you're
Yeah.
just not paying attention.
It was not enough because 3 or 4 offensive players don't only get you so far when you have as bad of a defense as they had last year. And they needed to go into this offseason and make some big changes. And they did not. Sure, they avoided losing Trey Hendrickson. Like, congrats, I guess, on doing the absolute minimum and finding a 1-year Band-Aid for your best defensive player. But otherwise, if you're expecting big improvements from this defense, you're really putting a lot of stock into Al Golden coming in as the defensive coordinator. I mean, yeah, maybe it's an improvement. It sure didn't look like it so far in the preseason. I know it's only the preseason, but then we have 2 rookies coming in.
And guess what? There were people lined up at the door to sign Lou Amarillo to be their defensive coordinator.
Yes.
Lou Anarumo was not the problem with their defense.
Yeah, and then personnel-wise, it's pretty much the same group, save for 2 rookies coming in. One of those rookies is Shamar Stewart, who all the talent in the world.
Yeah,
but to
no
me,
production.
He's an ultimate project who
Yeah.
I don't think you can be counting on for immediate production. So I don't know, man. I think that I definitely understand why everyone gets so excited. You know, the fantasy football aspect of it. Like, they have so many players that everyone is hearing about all summer, but this, to me, is the exact same team as it was last year. This wasn't them not making the playoffs because they ran into some bad luck. Like, they did this to themselves, and to me, they're probably at risk of doing it again.
You didn't even talk about the offensive line, which is undoubtedly worse than it was
Yeah.
last year, too.
Yeah.
How do you finish
it's like-
bottom
and it's
10 in
like-
the league in sacks when you have Trey Hendrickson? I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's crazy. All three levels of the defense are underwhelming at best. And yeah, Shamar Stewart, 4.5 sacks in 3 years.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
hard to do. Like
Yes.
that is, and to still go in the first round, that's really hard to do.
And you want to look at it and be like devil's advocate and be like, well, Joe Burrow, but it's like, is Joe Burrow going to play better than he played last year? He
That's
was
what I mean.
pretty
Hard to
much perfect
Hard to
last
imagine.
year.
They were as good as you could possibly ask them to be last season, and it did not get them to the playoffs. So I don't really see that changing this year.
Right. Let's move on. Stick around in the AFC. Talk about the Indianapolis Colts. They've been a non-factor for a long time now as they've searched for an identity or at least some stability at the quarterback position. Maybe Daniel Jones can be that. He's going to start the season as Indy's QB1 over Anthony Richardson. The Colts, contenders or pretenders?
This is much like how we open things. Do I think the Colts are a Super Bowl contender? No, but do I think that they're a contender to make the postseason and be a better team than last year? I definitely think so. I think Daniel Jones represents, I'm not going to say Daniel Jones is some massive upgrade, but I think he fits better with what they want to do and a team that can actually find an identity. Because as fun as Anthony Richardson is to look at for a few highlights, if you're watching Red Zone, when it comes to watching a full game of football, I don't think he's the guy you want in this offense to keep things productive and moving the ball. When you look at his mobility and being able to run the ball, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze there because they couldn't move the ball in the intermediate areas of the field, which is what you really need when you have your two best pass catching options being Tyler Warren and Josh Downs. Those are not big downfield threats. Those are guys that are going to be making plays between the hashes, out of the slot, and in those, 10 to 19 yard areas of the field. So I like Daniel Jones is the better fit to be able to execute that in the passing game, but we all know what this team is. This team is going to be a run-first offense behind Jonathan Taylor, behind Quentin Nelson and Bernard Raymond on that left side of the offensive line. I think they're going to run the ball really effectively with Taylor, who had a great year last year. But honestly, what I'm even more excited about, and I feel like nobody is talking about, is the defensive side of the ball. That defensive line, in my opinion, goes up against pretty much anyone else in football when it comes to being healthy. Because you look at Latu had a great year last year. He was top 30 in pass rush win rate as a rookie. You've got Kwity Paye on the other side, and then you have the two guys in the middle in DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart, who are they're both top 10 graded out players when it comes to against the run as defensive tackles. So that's really solid there. You've got Samson Ebukam coming off of the injury from last season, who will be that depth rotational piece for them. And then Lou Anarumo. Like I said, Lou Anarumo was not the reason the Bengals were a horrendous defense last season. It was the personnel that he was working with. I love Anarumo being an upgrade over what they had last year with Gus Bradley. Gus Bradley is very vanilla when it comes to coverage schemes. A lot of cover three, doesn't really like to mix things up. Anarumo is a guy that'll show more too high shell. I think he's going to be more multiple and give the secondary a better chance than they had last season. I'm excited about the defense. I think it'll be really good. And I think the offense will be a little bit more consistent than what they were last year. And this could be a double-digit 10-7 type of team that's in a wild card spot.
Can we get the production crew to just cut up that little segment where you said I like Daniel Jones? Because that's all I'm really focused on here.
That's going to be a sound drop throughout the
I don't
season.
disagree with the rest of the points you made about the Colts. I think the defense is definitely heading in the right direction. They've got a lot of weapons.
Mm-hmm.
The offensive line is fine. I think they lost some pieces,
They lost
that
pieces,
could
yeah.
be an issue. But it's Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
That's all it comes down to for me. I can't get excited about this, and maybe part of that is just me wanting to
we
see
talked
Anthony
about what
Richardson
excited
play.
is. Excited doesn't necessarily mean like this is a coach that job is on the line, and I think he knows that the better way to keep his job and be able to draft his next quarterback is playing Daniel Jones, because I think he thinks he wins more games with him.
Imagine your job is on the line.
I think
and
a lot
you're
of people
staring down
Hey,
Daniel
that's
Jones
tough.
in
This
the
is the
locker
be-
room.
I think a lot of
Do you
people
wanna
think
know-
a lot of things.
Do you want to know Daniel Jones' career best season, 2022? Who led the team in receiving that year? I'm gonna leave this
What
for
was it,
Jonah. I'm gonna leave this for the
2022?
host.
Okay.
Who led the team in receiving that season? It's a very simple,
Saquon Barkley.
obvious. Saquon Barkley.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Saquon Barkley.
Here's what I'll say about Daniel Jones, okay? He had Malik Neighbors to throw to last year and still put up the lowest QB rating in the NFL among quarterbacks with
Small
350 or
sample
more
size.
dropbacks.
Small
It's
sample
not a
size.
small sample size. He's been this guy his whole career outside of 2022 when he was able to have some success and was more
Everything-
mobile.
Are we kind of just doing the thing where, like, okay, recently we've seen these late breakouts from Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. He was more of a bounce back.
I'm not there. I'm not saying.
But are
Daniel
the Colts
Jones
doing that?
The
'Cause
Colts
I-
are definitely doing that.
like, hey, he was a first-round pick. And
That's 100%
Well, bring back
what
Peyton
they're
Manning.
doing.
No,
Bring back Peyton Manning.
I don't think the Colts are doing that at all. I think that this is the higher floor option because they don't, like many shouldn't, see the ceiling that people imagine exists for Anthony Richardson. They see the floor, which is what Steichen needs to keep his job.
I just think we're at a very weird point where we think that Daniel Jones provides a floor.
Yeah,
I think that's a...
The floor is low and the ceiling's
Anthony Richardson
non-existent.
chased the deep ball into infinity. I'm pretty sure he was like 16 of 50 on passes of 20-plus air yards. This is going to be a more conservative offense with Daniel Jones that's not going to wow people, but is playing in a terrible division and could finish 10-7. That's all I'm saying.
I think it's playing
I'm
in
just
R.I.P. Alec
imagining-
Pierce is what I'll say. R.I.P. Alec Pierce.
Yeah.
I know that it's like at some point in the season it's going to be like week 12 and it's going to be like the Colts and the Titans on Thursday Night Football and you're just going to be like, how is this the game that we're being forced to watch as a nation right now?
I love the doubters here.
A national embarrassment. All right, we got one more team. That's the Denver Broncos. They had their best season in years last year with Bo Nix under center instead of Russell Wilson. Their defense was top 5 in the NFL. Zachy, the Broncos, contenders or pretenders?
A lot of people have the Broncos as like the sexy pick for like the team of the NFL this year. I have them as pretenders. I don't believe that what they had going on last year was nearly as exciting as the record shows or how people feel about it. I think that quarterbacks struggle when they go into their second year in the NFL and teams have the book on them and they're able to look at the tape. And I think that's going to happen with Bo Nix. Maybe I'm just a Bo Nix denier. I just have never liked the guy. I don't get the sense that he's going to be a great quarterback. And I feel like we have this idea that he's going to be pushed into the upper echelon of these QBs. And I just don't see it. There's nothing else particularly on the team that has me absolutely thrilled about what they're going to do. Their receivers are like, okay, like Cortland Sutton is like, he's like pretty good. Like, you know, he's fun. I don't think there's a lot of dynamic playmakers on there. Sean Payton, good coach, but I just don't see it with the Broncos.
This team is too high of a floor with their defense. I don't care how much I don't love Bo Nix. Their defense is just way too good for this to not be a playoff team at the very least.
Yeah, I think defense is something that is tough to sustain year over year, but when you add Hufanga, Greenlaw, and Jahdae Barron to this defense, I feel like they have to still be near the top of the league.
Those are incredible additions.
I'm with
he is a difference maker.
Yeah, and I'm with you in that I still have my doubts about Bo Nix. People get so upset when you doubt a young quarterback after a fun rookie season, but I'm not totally in yet. I got to see it. I got to see him be more of a downfield passer than he was as a rookie. That being said, I do think that Sean Payton provides such a good ecosystem for everything he needs. Like, he doesn't need him to go out there and be Joe Burrow, right? He can just manage the game. They should have a better run game this year with J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey. I love the addition of Evan Ingram. So I think that my instinct is to doubt this team just because of Bo Nix, because I want to see it again. But, like, they're just set up so well otherwise. I have a hard time believing they won't be super competitive in the AFC.
I think that I think even a lot of the guys that you're saying, you know, like J.K. Dobbins is like, J.K. Dobbins won't last the whole season. That's just almost a guarantee at this point. Like,
are you a doctor?
It just happens every year. So it's like, it's not going to happen. And I think it's like, they're just low impact players, right? Like all across the offense, like Bo Nix is a low impact player. J.K. Dobbins is a low impact player. Like,
wrong. J.K. Dobbins is a stud. J.K. Dobbins is a stud.
He's very good.
J.K. Dobbins is a stud for 3 weeks, and then but it's like we're talking about contenders and pretenders. It's kind of like I'm not saying the Broncos are going to be in the basement. I think they're obviously in a really tough division. I actually really like the Raiders. I think what the Raiders is doing is really exciting. I think Geno Smith is going to be a better quarterback this year than Bo Nix will be. So I could easily see them finishing last in the AFC West.
Wasn't it you who had the Chargers as last in the AFC West?
Yeah, it was. We can get into
Are
that
you trying
at some
to
point.
Are you trying to reverse jinx that
in a
over
future
here?
show?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
get to that in a
I
future
think
show.
the Broncos, they don't play the sexiest brand of football, but it's not an ineffective brand of football. And I'll say this to close out this segment. They can't be any worse than the Rockies.
Got to loop baseball in somehow. That's right.
Had to do it.